Well, hello, everybody. I had an absolutely amazing, beautiful speech prepared for today. I mean, I have been working on this and thinking about it and really thought I just had exactly what we were going to talk about. And that was until about 8 o'clock this morning. I arrived yesterday around 3, got situated, got in, going through my notes, and determined to enjoy the lovely Massachusetts food that I love so much. Something did not agree with me. And so I found myself this morning not only in a lot of pain, but trying to figure out how in the world I was going to get here this afternoon. And so, through a few little war wounds, I'm here. But it sometimes the universe, or if you are a person of faith like I am, God changes things around so that you understand the message that you're giving before you even get it. It's the lived experiences that people who are in environmental justice communities go through every single day in order to help us understand what the impact is of our work. So I thought it was quite phenomenal that I titled this No Matter What. And it ended up being Get There No Matter What. So I hope you don't mind if I take a seat, because the place that I want to start is actually with the no matter what. And it comes from a story that I wrote in the book. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to read a part of it. Hopefully, we will get to hear some of it from directly from the person, Miss Sharon Levine, who I heard was going to be in town this week. A lot of people who will be here for climate work. But Miss Sharon is special. And if it's okay, I'm just going to read how special she is, and then we'll get a little bit deeper into why this is so important to talk about with respect to health and equity in communities of color and environmental justice communities. This comes from the chapter that I wrote, chapter 4, Living Over the Soil and Under the Cloud of Contamination, Natural Gas, Petrochemical Pollution, and Climate Change. Some people could look at a mud puddle and see an ocean with ships. Zora Neale Hurston, their eyes were watching God. I was standing on the carport of Sharon Levine's home in St. James Parish, Louisiana in June of 2020 when I gained a whole new respect for the term resilient. Along with a few colleagues from Moms Clean Air Force, I made the trek from Mississippi down to Louisiana to speak at the Rise St. James Juneteenth event and put my feet and hands to work raising awareness about stopping the proposed Formosa plant from locating in the community. At the time, there was a glimmer of recovery across the country. The COVID-19 vaccine had been released and people were getting the shots. President Biden set a goal of having 70% of American adults vaccinated by July 4th, and my husband and I were fully compliant. Travel was beginning to spring back to life. Masks were required on planes and trains. Making it more exciting was the fact that Congress and the president signed legislation making Juneteenth a federally recognized holiday. It seemed right to celebrate the day that the last enslaved Africans got word of freedom by working to make sure their descendants were freed from the petrochemical pollution that encapsulated every aspect of their environment. I told Sharon I was on my way and ready to do whatever she needed done. Without missing a beat, Sharon led us to her carport that was filled with Rise St. James materials and handed us petitions, flyers, and signs. Go to the neighborhoods down the street and tell the people that in case of a hurricane, we're going to meet at Rose's Catering instead of the Formosa plant site. My mind said, we're still meeting in the middle of a hurricane? But my mouth knew better than to question it, let alone give it voice. Nothing, including the first named tropical storm of the 2021 season, Claudette, would stand in the way of ending historical environmental injustice in the community. Tropical Storm Claudette would have to wait because we had work to do and justice was impatient. I reached for the extra mask in my pocket and responded, yes, ma'am. Which street do you want us to hit first? Sharon's efforts have garnered international attention. She is the 2021 winner of the Goldman Environmental Prize for North America and has appeared in countless magazines and news articles. Her resilience is born from years of weathering storms, regardless of whether or not they are hurricanes, back-to-back floods, relentless layers of petrochemical pollution, or plain old Southern systemic racism. For years, communities on the front lines of pollution and climate change have survived through the sheer unwillingness to be deemed the sacrificial lamb for America's dependence on natural gas and fossil fuels. We've had no choice but to figure out ways to raise awareness of environmental injustice while addressing systemic racism, social justice, and developing the generational sustainability of the community. Sharon was doing what generations of our families have simply had to do: yell until someone listens. Communities across this country have been living in resilience as long as generations of people have been in this country and beyond. It's because it's what we have to do. And the interesting dynamic to me has always been that while we sit and we think through solutions and we are in the doom and gloom of climate change, there's plenty of climate doom and gloom out here if you haven't gone and heard just the latest news report. What is often missing is the climate hope and the climate solutions that are found in the communities that have raised us each and every day. The difference is they don't have the benefit of silo. So what does that mean? It means that in every single environmental justice community, they're also grappling with the issues of healthcare systems that are unfair, of police brutality, of education, of food disparity, of failing infrastructure, and how in the world are they supposed to stop and focus on one thing that we're focused on without addressing everything else? It is that mere fact of our failure to incorporate all aspects of the community when dealing with their health. I came in towards the end of the last presentation, and it was so good to hear the conversation about cumulative health impacts, because it is those cumulative health impacts that help us truly understand not only what is the current status of the community, but what is it going to take to get them to the place of not only climate resiliency, but also the future of those generations that are to come. And guess what? They know and have some semblance of what to do. Ms. Johnson, that lives on the corner of 3rd and Jackson Avenue, who has lived in the same house for 45 years, who has seen children raised on that corner, she can tell us better how the seasons have changed than any scientist could. She knows how when the roots go underneath the street and they crack up, when the city needs to come through and repave, because she's the one who calls them. She could tell you how many children in that community have asthma, and she can also tell you how many people have missed days from work because she keeps the kids. All of this is collective knowledge and information within the communities to which we serve and which those are hardest hit. But what are we not calculating? What are we missing in their quest to ensure that they survive absolutely no matter what? Because they have. It's one of the reasons why I really enjoy writing from the perspective of an African-American woman in the South. I'm from Mississippi, born and raised. My parents came to Mississippi as a part of the voting rights movement in the late 60s. My dad is a retired civil rights attorney. My mother is a retired school teacher. There was no shortage of justice and education in our household. But at the same time, there was an understanding that we all work together for the collective community. And in doing so, we have an obligation to ensure that we continue to exist. So, when you think about African Americans in this country, we are the embodiment of resiliency. We are a people who was taken from one ecosystem of plants, animals, germs, trees, air, land, and tragically and traumatically removed and brought across an ocean to a different ecosystem. Different air, different plants, different weather. And then we were forced to labor from people from an entirely different continent and ecosystem. My God, resiliency runs through our blood. And through all of that, not only have we found ways to maintain our communities under some of the most treacherous circumstances, we teach others how to do it as well. My favorite story is that of the hope of women who were coming from the west coast of Africa who had the forethought to tie rice seed into their hair. They braided it into their hair, not knowing where they were going or whether or not they would have an opportunity to plant, but just the mere seed of understanding that somewhere, at some point, in some time, I might be able to sow something that now nourishes me and my family in the same way that I have been raised. That's profound. And that same genetic forethought runs through us, because that's how North Carolina rice got to be so significant. And the Gullah Geechee people are still protective of that to this day. So it's in those systems that we now understand not only what it means to be resilient, what it really, really means. The authentic connection of people to culture, to land, to the protection of the environment. And here's one, how the environment protects us. Because so often we don't think about that. So many of our ancestors, both in the African American community and in the Native and indigenous communities across this country, the land has protected them in the same way that they have protected the land. That's evident in the many songs that come from the African American traditions of how they use nature to escape their confinement. How rivers and trees were part of the system of freedom. So it's not far from us. It's ingrained into a part of our being. But these are also the very same networks that systems use to try to continue to encapsulate us. And without the real understanding and conversation from people who come from these lived experience, there then becomes a barrier and a divide. That divide shows up when we go into communities and we want to plant trees, and we cannot figure out for the life of us why people in communities of color may not want to come out and plant trees, but we fail to take into account that sometimes generations of their own ancestors hung from the very same trees that we are trying to plant. And so connecting to the culture and connecting to the people and understanding the different varieties of what and how and who we are trying to be and become must be done in one space, cannot be done apart, because they don't operate in silos. We don't operate in silos. We must learn to operate together, and to take the information that we have garnered from our research, from the beauty of diversity that has now sprouted across this country in academic institutions everywhere, having students bring their lived experience of where they are coming from and what they know into the calculation of the data. Now we are getting somewhere. That is the space where we are ultimately understanding not only climate solutions and their impacts to us, but what we need to prevent. I've recently taken on a new role as the executive director of Beyond Petrochemicals, which is an initiative of the Bloomberg Philanthropies. And in this, we are looking to stop the expansion of petrochemical facilities across this country. 120 proposed petrochemical facilities that sit in the very same footprint that Plantation sat on in Louisiana. Think about that. And the expansion of these polluting entities, it's not because we need some more plastic. Seriously, how many of you do not know what spaghetti looks like? Raise your hand. That's what I thought. And you'd be ashamed to raise your hand because nobody wants their mama to know that you don't know what spaghetti looks like. So why is it you need the little plastic window on the front of the spaghetti box to tell you what spaghetti looks like? You don't. There is unnecessary pollution in our communities that we've been fooled into thinking is necessary because we've been fooled into thinking it is jobs, it is opportunities. But is it really? Is it really a job when you have to turn around and spend all of the extra income that you might have gotten on going to pay a medical bill? Is it really a job when the food costs have increased because of the petrochemicals that are now in fertilizer, and now you're having to pay the healthcare costs? Is it really a job? Is it really a job when they go to recruit people from outside of the community versus the people who are living right then and there? All of these are the things that happen when we silo the conversation. I want to begin to close. I am from the traditional Baptist, Black Baptist tradition, so we close 3 times. So I'm going to begin to close with something that is very real and something very prevalent, and another section of the book that I'm going to read for you. And this was the most difficult part of the book for me to write. And I hope you understand why. This comes from chapter 9. Climate crisis is an accomplice to the murder of George Floyd, links between climate change, extreme weather, and violence. On a warm September night in 2020, I was driving to my office, ready to pour onto paper the thoughts that had gathered throughout the day about climate. During the day, I'm focused on my job at the Environmental Defense Fund. At night, when I can pull away with a little time, I write. On this particular night, I was driving home, deep in thought about Hurricane Sally striking the coast of Alabama and Mississippi. This was the second hurricane to strike the Gulf Coast in less than a month, and my mind quickly filled with words I planned to write on storm devastation and the invisible yet lingering impacts of air pollution and floodwaters. I brought in ideas that intrigued me from a series of articles that connected global warming to weather-related disasters to an increase in violence. I was determined to avoid all distraction, no matter what, to get these thoughts on paper. Up ahead on the road, I saw blue flashing lights. 2 police cars were behind the late model Nissan Altima. As I slowed my car to pass, my heartbeat sped up. Although it was dark, my headlights shined upon 2 young Black men who looked like college kids. School at the University of Mississippi had recently started back with the limited in-person classes, and these young men were wearing the classic Ole Miss uniform of khaki pants and a polo-style shirt. They sat on the hood of one of the police cars, heads down, while one officer with a flashlight looked at paperwork and the other looked through their car. I took a deep breath. I'm the mother of 2 Black sons, one who has had his own experience with the police. It had been less than 6 months since the murder of George Floyd. My husband's oldest son, my bonus child, was living in Brunswick, Georgia, when Ahmaud Arbery was shot and killed by 2 white men. The hashtag, I will stay with your son, had been trending on Facebook. Mothers of all backgrounds from across the country were taking a pledge to stop when they see young Black men stopped by the police. The charge is simple. Take no action, just stay. Just be the presence, be the mother. Be what you want someone else to be for your son. Before I knew it, I'd pulled into the exit ramp to loop around and dialed my husband. Babe, I'm on Highway 6 and the police have 2 young Black men pulled over sitting on the side of the road. I gotta turn around. My husband responded with alarm. Where are you? What highway? What's happening? I told him my exact location, and he could hear in my voice my determined concern. I could hear the fear in his. I knew that there was a chance I might get a ticket, or worse yet, be harmed for trying to help. I also knew that violent interactions are more likely to take place when it's hot. When I saw those 2 boys, I could not help but see my own 2 sons. The deafening collision of movements that I experienced that night reminded me of a stark reality. Regardless of whether it is climate change or police brutality, there is no social justice issue that does not intersect for Black Americans. That rung so true to me over this weekend after hearing about the shooting in Allen, Texas, where at the beginning of my book, I talk about friends of mine, Tyra and Eric and Valerie, that I grew up with, who now live in Allen, Texas. And I watched with alarm as they were just recounting where they were and that they were safe. And it also alarms me that as people go after go after immigrants in hate crimes, these are often people who are escaping climate violence in their own communities. This is only going to get worse. We are only going to have more and more people who are seeking asylum in our country and other countries because of the climate disaster. And they have made up in their minds that no matter what, they are going to live. So this idea of what resiliency is, it is more than us just understanding that there are infrastructure pieces to put in place, that there are data numbers that we need to collect, that there are health impacts that we need to consider, because we have to consider all of this while people are moving now. People are taking action now. It is not a question as to whether or not the climate is changing or whether or not health is being impacted, because they are living and breathing it every day. We do not have to go far to understand whether or not cancer is being increased because of facilities. We could just look at the death records and what people are putting down as the cause of death. We don't have to go far. What we do have to do is connect the dots and ensure that we are getting the full story from people and that we are incorporating their full solution to us. It goes back to what Ms. Sharon was doing. When Ms. Sharon was fighting the Formosa plant, through hurricane, through a new storm that had come in, because I talked to her again and we were talking while she was sitting underneath the carport waiting for a roofer to come, because she needed a blue tarp over her roof. And she said to me, "Heather, I need a generator." "Okay. You need a generator?" She said, "Yeah, I need a generator so I can plug in and I can go and put on Facebook Live what these chemical companies are doing. Because, see, nobody's looking right now because there's no power and they're doing all this flaring out here. So I'm going to go take my phone and I'm going to tape them. And then I'm going to put it on Facebook Live so everybody can see this is what they're really doing. I need a generator for that. Not for power for the house." And I hope that you get to meet not only her, but so many other activists who are in this country right now doing the Lord's work on the ground. Because they're not waiting. They're acting. And they're acting no matter what. And I think it's high time that we join them in this fight with our resources and our determination and our will. Thank you.